Well, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, depending on where you are. This is our illumination class. All of you I see, I know, so you're not surprised that you're suddenly in this class. We're going to begin with some prayers to try to set the motivation, and then we'll meditate to try to solidify that in practice. So if we put up the prayers which most of you know by now. Sangye churang soki chognam la changchu badu dagni kyapsu chi dagi chunin gipe sognam ki drola penchir sangye drupa sho. I go for refuge until I am enlightened, till I become a Buddha, to the Buddha, Dharma, and Supreme Assembly. Through the collections I create, through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all migrating beings. Sangye churang soki chognam la jangchu badu dagni kyapsu chi dagi chunen gipe sognam ki drola penchir sangye drupa sho. Then offering a mandala. By offering this ground that we visualize, anointed with perfume and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru in the center, the four continents, their precious substances and precious substances above that in the sky, the sun and the moon, visualized as a Buddha realm, may all migrators enjoy a pure realm. O holy and perfect pure Lama, sort of requesting to the Dharmakaya, our primordial guru, who we imagine infusing the teachings. O holy and perfect pure Lama, from the clouds of compassion that form in the skies of your Dharmakaya wisdom, please release, send down a rain of vast and profound Dharma, precisely in accordance with the needs of those to be trained. Idam Guru Radna Mandaglakam Niryatayami. Okay. So good to see you. We're going to do a little meditation. Hi, KT and Sheila, Ida, Anna, you joined in the last couple of seconds. Sit comfortably. Relax your body. Relax your mind. Recognize your respiration and hold your mindfulness on it. Recognizing when you're breathing in, when you're breathing out, when the breath is long or whether it's short, to the exclusion of everything else. Notice if you're multitasking, if you're thinking about other things. And if so, let go of them and put that energy that you were investing in those other fantasies, thoughts, place it on the mindfulness of the breathing. If you're successful in calming your mind a little, now place your attention on the mental consciousness. And eventually on its clear light nature, conventional clear light nature. It has no shape or color, location. It's something known by the wisdom eye and gnosis eye. As though it was something that, when we say the wisdom eye, as though it was something that could be seen by wisdom. It's known. Offering no obstruction to the arisal of thoughts within it, perhaps good thoughts if we so choose. Offering no resistance to the absorption, reabsorption of unwanted thoughts back into it, if we choose to do so. Our conventional developmental Buddha nature. Contemplate for a while that how joyous this is to recognize that we have the ability always with us, even when we get angry or in despair, when we're attached, when we're proud, when we're humble, at all times we have the capacity to work toward enlightenment. We can eliminate negative thoughts, replacing them, reformatting our hard drive, so to speak, or our solid state drive mind in a new way, not following our old behaviors. The fact that we can recognize this and feel joyous is because of this auspicious moment, having found a life of leisure and endowment, the result of our past actions and prayers and aspirations all coming together. Not just an ordinary human life, but one where we've met the Dharma that still exists, has not degenerated. We have spiritual teachers and friends, Sangha, patrons. we're not plagued by, we're not overcome by wrong views that prevent us from practicing, although we can have wrong views to some degree. And recognizing that this life is short. The time of death is uncertain, just as our friend Geshe Dadu Namgyal, who's been missing since last Tuesday in the cold area around Shravasti Abbey. When karma ripens, this human rebirth, no matter what plans we have, what status we have, it can be lost in an instant. To try to take the best use of this life of leisure and endowment, this auspicious moment, not working only for our own liberation from samsara, not working simply for our own personal nirvana, but following the Buddha's advice where he said, those with intelligence and compassion should forego my lesser vehicle, my Hinayana, and embrace my Mahayana, the greater vehicle, with an empathy and compassion for all sentient beings, that we have to work at, to develop, remembering that they've been our mother in numberless lives, that they've been kind even when they weren't mother. Even now our enemies are kind to us, training our mind like that in the Lojong teachings. How wonderful if we could spend the rest of our life and even pass away with those aspirations, the 5 forces, and so forth. So think, for the purpose of achieving enlightenment in order to benefit all these mother sentient beings, which is the only way that I can perfectly, spontaneously, and effortlessly bring about their path to enlightenment by myself alone. In order to do that, I need to accumulate the 2 collections of merit and wisdom that are the causes of the form body and the wisdom body, the Rupakaya and Dharmakaya. In order to do that, I need to know how to accumulate them, especially the accumulation of wisdom, which is expounded in Nagarjuna's Fundamental Wisdom, commented on by Chandrakirti in his Madhyamakavatara, and explained in more detail by Lama Khapa, his Gompa Rapsel, which we're studying. So I think I'm going to listen, contemplate, and meditate on the class today, during the class today, in order to achieve enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. Okay. So good to see you. Bringing your attention back to the present. I'm just going to send a text to. Oh, I don't have a text for him. I was going to send a text to John Campbell. Paul, do you have John? Can you? I want to tease him for missing so many classes. So good to see you. Yes.
John emailed me asking if there was class this morning or today. I assume he'll be here shortly.
Okay, good. Okay. Sometimes he needs a little nudge. And there we go. So good to see you. Any questions? How are we doing? Any Dharma itches you need scratched before we begin? Snehi? No? Paul?
I'm sorry, Venerable George. I've missed so many classes.
Okay, that's okay.
Nothing was coherent.
Okay. You'll catch up. We're at a point right now in a sort of like very how did Geshe Soka said? Can't remember her. Oh, I have it in some other notes. There's quite difficult points that are coming up. So this is some particular section of the text that would be very good to pay attention to if you have the chance. So I just wanted to mention before we begin, our friend Geshe Dadul Namgyal, who has been currently resident at Shravasti Abbey and dear teacher there for some time, has been missing since last Tuesday evening or afternoon. Temperatures on many of the nights, if not all of them, have been below freezing. I think it's a relatively rural area. Geshe was last seen taking a walk, but has disappeared, and there's been no sign or word of him. The local authorities have sent out searchers, as well as Ron mentioned, as searching dogs and so forth, but there have been no sightings of Geshe. That's why I mentioned in our motivation about one never knows about karma, what karma one has. Even with the great accumulation of merit and plans, what you're going to do next week, what you're going to do next year, your plans and so forth, none of that can prevent your dying. When the Lord of Death comes, there's no way to avoid that. So it's kind of, while we're praying that the situation might be resolved, that Geshe might be found unharmed or still alive, one can also use, besides those prayers and aspirations and wishes, use the situation for one's own Dharma practice to recognize, wow, someone like Geshe with vast knowledge and kindness and, plans and so forth for Dharma teachings can disappear like that. What about me? So I just wanted to mention that, and for us to make, some prayers for that. I mentioned before the class that I've known Geshe for many, many years, and his brother Sepak Riksen, both of whom had been resident at the Dribung Dharma Center in Atlanta. KT, had you studied with Geshe when he was there, or Sepak Riksen?
Mm-mm. I live up in Milwaukee, but I've been studying with him online since for the whole pandemic. Whenever he gave any courses, I was taking them with him. With Geshe Dadul. Geshe Dadul, yeah. He's so sweet, sweet. If you've never met him, like the sweetest monk of ever,
Yeah,
just
incredibly kind.
Kind of like Yoda.
Yeah,
Like
exactly. Yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that at first, and also to answer or to try to address one question. I think this was sent in from one of the people who listens to the the teachings remotely in Malaysia. She said, "Hi, Ven George." This the Chinese, instead of saying venerable, they abbreviate Ven George. Regarding how to identify the inherent self. It is difficult, but nevertheless, I am trying, and please kindly guide my thinking process as possible. So, of course, there's no inherently existing self. So I think what she means is how to identify the object of negation, which is an inherently existing self, an inherently existent phenomena, or in particular, an inherently existent self. Whenever someone scolds or blames me, I try to concentrate to find the inherent I. I guess what she means is to find the sense, the grasping to that sense of I and the appearance to the mind. That's what we usually say, which is a mental image, a concept. Reflect that events happen due to dependent arising, cause and effect, and are impermanent. It's the way of conventional truth. By thinking like this, recognize the non-existence of the inherent I. Place the mind like a piece of wood. So I think what she's grasping at it here is, once you've identified the I, what do? She's hypothesizing, or maybe she's imagining that things happen due to dependent arising, cause and effect. That's useful to think, but that's not going to be the antidote to eliminate the grasping. And that they are impermanent. That's just knowing that things are impermanent, that the I is impermanent. That's not going to cause that object of negation to be negated, right? By thinking like this, recognize the non-existence of inherent I, place the mind like a piece of wood. So placing the mind like a piece of wood is advice that sometimes the lamas give, that when all else fails, if you're getting angry or you get in great attachment, you realize it and you can't apply any of the antidotes, just be like a piece of wood. Just don't react. Just let your mind. That's not a long-term solution, right? That's just temporary. Sometimes even Khyentse Trijang Rinpoche used to say, when all else fails, take a nap. Let all of the ruminations of your mind subside by going to sleep, and then when you get up, start from a fresh mind. Okay, anyway, I just wanted to share that, and when she listens later, maybe that will help a little bit. Okay, so where we ended last time and where we're going to start today is Jimpa page 175, if you've got the written edition, printed edition of his book, 13 lines up from the bottom. In Anne Klein's book, page 169, the first line. And if you have an electronic edition like I do, you can search for "understood thus, comma, an existence through its own objective mode of being. Understood thus, comma, an existence." You can find it that way. Okay, so here we are. So what are we doing? We're talking about the Svatantrika school. Why are we doing that? Because we're trying to differentiate the Prasangika from the Svatantrika view, and also getting sort of a refresher course in tenets. Those of you who've studied tenets, does anyone know what the Sanskrit word for tenets are? You know, Paul?
Siddhanta.
Yeah, Siddhanta or Standa. Geshe Zopa always used to refer to them that way, the different tenets. So we say in Tibetan, we say drupta. So one of the courses that we had studied together, either at Norbuling, Drupta Norbuling, or here in New York, was the text on tenets. And one of the sections is going through Svatantrika, the Sautrantika Svatantrika, and the Yogacara Svatantrika. So this is sort of the context of what we've been talking about here. We had a quotation from Kamala Shila's text, which hasn't been fully translated into English to any extent at all, the Madhyamaka Alankara. And that was supposedly used to point out the object of negation. So here, we're going to start here. Understood thus, an existence through its own objective mode of being, and not posited in dependence on being perceived by cognitions or by the virtue of the power of cognitions, constitutes true, ultimate, and final existence. About this here. No, another one. So this is Thupten Jinpa's has a note here, 322. He says, the emphasis is mine, Thupten Jinpa's emphasis. The italicized phrase constitutes the measure of the hypothetical true existence, which is the object of negation according to Svatantrika Madhyamaka, right? So remember when we say hypothetical true existence, because true existence is not an object of knowledge from the Prasangika point of view, even for the Svatantrika point of view. It is something that does not exist. So that's why he uses the word hypothetical. So he says the emphasis, meaning the italicized portion here, an existence through its own objective mode of being that is not posited in dependence on being perceived by cognitions or by the virtue of the power of cognitions. That's kind of the standard version. Usually we would add some other qualifying phrase in, N. Klein says, thus in the Svatantrika school, to exist in the manner of an objective mode of subsistence. So there's an existing there by its own, objectively, without being posited through appearing to an awareness. And usually the extra words that are missing in both of these definitions are appearing to a non-defective awareness, or through the force of an awareness, is to exist truly, to exist ultimately, and to exist as the object's own reality. Also, conceiving such is an innate conception of true existence. So for Svatantrika, this is the identification of the innate grasping to true existence. Making sense. We read this last time. I wonder if anyone has had a chance to think about it. Does that definition make sense? Okay. Nadine and Stephen are nodding. Sean is sort of Indian-like. Mikhail, how about you? We talked a little bit about that last time.
Yeah, I think I'm okay, but just I still have a lot of difficulty to draw the distinction between inherent existence on the conventional level that they assert and this definition of true existence. What is the difference between the two? I mean, they look like really say.
Right. So, as I mentioned, different scholars would say different things about what the Svatantrika tenets actually say, but this is what we're following here. This distinction will be coming in the next couple of paragraphs. So let's bear through here. So to sort of differentiate what conventional existence is and what Svatantrika says conventional existence is something which is inherently existent. That means that it exists from its own side. For instance, the basis of designation of the phenomena exist from their own side for Svatantrika. They are inherently existent. Whereas Prasangika says even the basis of the designations do not exist from their own side. They are merely imputed upon something like the collection of parts and so forth. So the Prasangika has a much more subtle view. For the Svatantrika, things have some kind of existence from their own side upon which you can label them and upon which they can be said to be conventionally existent. But that more detail will be coming. Okay. How are we doing? Okay. Okay.
Venerable George,
Yes.
the way this is defined, it makes me feel like it's almost the same definition of ultimate existence, like for the lower schools, like for Sautantrika and Vaibhashika, that things have their own objective existence and it's not dependent on a consciousness.
Okay, so but the lower tenets do say that is indeed true, that they do. And they say the lower tenets would say that they are. They don't usually use the word inherently existent. They would generally say that phenomena are truly existent. But what they mean by that is sometimes a little bit different according to the different tenet systems, that phenomena have an objective existence existing out there. But the lower tenets do not say that they are conventionally imputed, that they are designated upon those appearances. They say that they are existing from their own side in a different way. Okay, let's go a little bit further. We'll things maybe become a little bit clearer as we go along. So the text, as Jimpa translates next, says, "One might ask," or in Anne's translation, she says, "objection." If this is so, if that's kind of the definition, how does one explain the statement in the Madhyamaka Aloka, the light of the middle way? So this is a quotation of that statement. To say that ultimately there is no arising, this is, what do we say? This is Kamalashila, right? Say he's explaining, to say that ultimately there is no arising, or as Anne says, ultimately there's no production, because generally when we talk about Svatantrika, they use the same kind of reasonings that the Prasangika do to refute production, true production, or ultimate production. So for them, ultimately here means truly. They're still saying that things are inherently produced, but ultimately there's no production. Or what do we say? Ultimately, there is no arising. To say that ultimately there is no arising is to say that they, which Jimpa interprets as arising, disintegration, and so on, are not established as such by perfect cognition. notice that the question mark, I was thinking the question mark there is wrong, but it's to the right of the single quote, which is from this citation. So this says, if it is so, how do you explain the statement? So that question mark is at the end, meaning how do you explain this? And so Chimpa's translation says, for though through implication, this defines ultimate existence and ultimate arising in terms of being established as arising and as existence by a rational cognition of suchness. Okay. Did anyone grok that the very first time they read that? You know, my expression, grok. Okay, this is a little bit complicated here. Let me see. I wanted to quote something that Geshe Sopa had said. Okay, I'm going to read from a teaching Geshe gave when he was teaching us Gompa Rabsel in 2002, in July. He said, in the Svatantrika Madhyamaka system, everything exists conventionally. So even emptiness exists conventionally, right? Did you know that? Nadine, did you know that? Emptiness exists conventionally? Okay. Everything exists conventionally. Conventionally means based on conventional knowledge. Conventional knowledge, even if it is even if the appearances are mistaken based on conventional knowledge, but their way of understanding, establishing that there is nothing wrong. So in other words, according to Svatantrika, even though the appearances are mistaken, you know, in the Yogacara sense, in the sense that they appear to be separate from the consciousness, still the conventional knowledge dealing with that can still establish things within that context. So therefore, you have to accept things conventionally existent, but not ultimately. Nothing exists ultimately. This is similar in both the Svatantrika and the Prasangika system. So then this Svatantrika system, in the Svatantrika system, things do not exist ultimately. They do not truly exist. Ultimately, they do not exist. Yet things exist inherently on the conventional level. They inherently exist, but do not ultimately exist. You have to know the difference. That's the Prasangika system, but in the Svatantrika Madhyamaka, they have this distinction. They have the distinction of being inherently existent, but not existing ultimately. That means not existing to the meditative equipoise that's realizing emptiness. So here, first, we need to know the Svatantrika Madhyamaka's way of the measure of the object of negation. We say gaksha se. Gaksha means object of negation, or that which is to be negated, that which is to be refuted. Gak means negate or refute. Ja, afterwards, when you have a verbal context like that, gakbar jawa or gaksha, that means that which is to be refuted, or that which is to be negated, or in short, the object of negation. we have to figure out, we have to understand what the Svatantrika's measure of that. What is the object of negation? Earlier, we said gotcha means the target, like in the question from before. When you're trying to do the 4-point analysis, you first try to recognize the object of negation, the target, so to speak, as Geshe was saying. That means what your mind is imagining is there. There's the mental image, which is not the actual gotcha. The actual gotcha is what you're imagining to exist through that mental image, right? The target itself, the gotcha itself, is true existence. It's kind of like also when we gave quotation earlier, the trusted object that we've always believed in, which is the target itself is true existence, which is itself non-existent. It's just true existence is some hypothetical thing that our mind imagines and believes in as trusted, but it itself is actually non-existent. But its image does exist. If things are truly existent, if they are, then they should be like this, and you should know exactly the measurement. You should clearly understand the image. Otherwise, you can't utilize any kind of logical reason. So therefore, in the Svatantrika system, non-inherent existence is not gotcha. Okay, so this is what, just touching on exactly what we're asking, which Snehi was just asking. The non-inherent existence is not something to be refuted, because inherent existence is not something to be refuted, because they accept it. It is not the gotcha. For Prasangika, we say that Tokpe takpa sam mayinba. Paul, do you know what that means? Tokpe takpa sam mayimba.
Tokpe takpa mayimba is not imputed by conceptuality?
Not merely imputed.
Not merely imputed by conceptuality, right?
Yeah. That is the sort of like the measure of the object of negation, that which is not merely imputed by conceptuality, something that has something existing there that you don't have to impute. That's the measure for Prasangika. But that would not satisfy the Svatantrika. They would not say that at all. So for the Prasangika, that which is not merely imputed by thought is the object of negation. Whereas for Svatantrika, Lola Nangwe Wangi Shakpa Mayimba. Okay, just to say, I'm not sure if John is in his car. Are you in your car? Okay, maybe you can't be translating from your car easily. Okay. So,
Lola Shakpa.
Lola Nangwa. Lola means appearing to the mind, right?
Right.
Lola Nangwe Wangi, by the power of appearing to the mind. Shakpa Mayimba. It is not posited by the power, that which is not posited by the power of appearing to the mind. That's their object of negation. So they say that the actual thing that is being imputed is some kind of entity which is posited, what we could say imputed or established, is posited by the power of appearing, which is not posited by the power of appearing to a consciousness or a non-defective consciousness. So that means that something the way that things are said to inherently exist, or let's say the way that from the point of view of Svatantrika, the way that they're talking about true existence here, just their take on it is that phenomena are posited by the power of appearing to a non-defective consciousness. They appear to a consciousness, and then they are posited in dependence upon that. Anything that is not posited by the power of appearing to a consciousness, a non-defective consciousness, would be their measure of true existence. So in other words, we mentioned last time, some kind of thought in your mind, let's say like the horns of a rabbit, or true existence or something, which has not itself appeared to a non-defective consciousness, but still you believe to exist. That's their measure of the object of negation. That which is not posited by the power of appearing to a consciousness is the object of negation for Svatantrika. So there's two different measures of the object of negation. In fact, all phenomena do not truly exist because they exist by the power of appearing for Svatantrika. They appear, and then on the basis of their appearance, which is due to karma and so forth, one can posit their existence. Appearing to the awareness, or lo in this definition, when we say lola nangwa. Here, lo, or awareness, is a kind of consciousness, a valid knowledge, so that things have to appear to a valid knowledge, a reputable, how do you say, reliable consciousness, not something that's defective. And if it appears to that, then you can impute it, you can posit it. Here, lo is not necessarily any consciousness. Lola nangwe wangi shakpa, posited by the power of appearing to a consciousness. You cannot establish it to exist because it appears to any consciousness. If that were the case, then you could say, oh, a rabbit horn exists because it appears to the mind. But the mind to which a rabbit horn appears is not a valid consciousness. But that awareness, that lo to which a rabbit horn appears, is not valid. So appearing to a consciousness means appearing to a valid consciousness. So in our definition that we just had here, understood thus an existence through its own objective mode of being, and not posited in dependence on being perceived by cognitions or posited by the virtue of cognitions, constitutes true, ultimate, and final existence. This is talking about that. So appearing to a consciousness means appearing to a valid consciousness. That should be a valid consciousness, but they say that a thing which is established by power of appearing to any valid consciousness conventionally exists. If it is not established by the power of appearing to a valid consciousness, but hypothetically one imagines it's established by its own without being based on appearing to the mind, having nothing to do with the mind, the appearance to a reputable, valid mind, existing by its own absolute nature, then that is truly existent. That's the Svatantrika's view of truly existent. Some kind of hypothesized object to one's own mind that hasn't appeared to your mind to a valid consciousness upon which you could posit it. That is the actual gaksha, object of negation for Svatantrika. That is the lola nangwe wangi shakpa mayimba. That is the that which is not posited by the power of appearing to a consciousness. Okay, so that's coming right now. So here we have this statement. One might ask, or as Anne translates it, objection. Kamalashila's Illumination of Middle Way says that ultimately there is no production, is to be explained as meaning that the production of these is not established by a consciousness of reality, that is, a reasoning consciousness. So when we talk about a consciousness of reality, or as Jimpa says here, a rational cognition of suchness. The Tibetan accords more with saying a reasoning consciousness, a consciousness of reality. The word in the Tibetan text for consciousness of reality, what did we say here? Shuki dondamba yobadang kewa ni de konanila jukbe rikshe. Kewa dang yobadruba shewa. So here, reality is dekonani, the Tibetan word, la jukbe rikshe. Rikshe means a reasoning consciousness. Rikpa generally means, is one of the synonyms of logic, right? When we had our course in Lorik, that Rik is spelled a different way, the ways of knowing, or it can be this Rik also. Rik means usually logic or types. Okay, let's see what's being said here. So Jimpa's text says, for through implication, this defines ultimate existence and ultimate arising in terms of being established as arising and as existence by a rational cognition of suchness. Dekonani la jukbe rikshe, a rikshe which engages dekonani, which engages suchness or reality. So this word rikshe, yukti jnana, maybe some of you remember yukti is one of the other Sanskrit words for reasoning. Jeffrey Hopkins also translates it as this rikshe as reasoning consciousness. Jimpa is translating here as rational cognition. I'm not sure where rational cognition doesn't seem to fit in my own mind here. Geshe Zopa says about this, earlier it was said that conventional things are established by conventional knowledge, not ultimate knowledge. Okay, here's the crucial, this is what is being talked about here. Earlier in Kamalashila's text, in Jnana-garbha and so forth, when we talk about conventional reality, conventional things are just established by conventional knowledge. So there's two kinds of knowledge. Knowledge that analyzes the conventional and knowledge that analyzes the ultimate. Knowledge that analyzes the ultimate would be like looking within, let's say, the knowledge which analyzes the conventional would say, where's Paul? Or say, where is John? John's in his car, or maybe now he's in his house. Did you get out of the car? You're in your house. John's in his house. Where is he? He's in New York State. He's in the house. He's in that room over there. You walk into the room and say, where's John? And say, that's John. You point at him. That's called conventional analysis. But if you're not satisfied with that and you say, but where is John? And you search within his aggregates. Is John his nose, his face, his strength, his mind? You can't find John anywhere. That's called ultimate analysis. So conventional things are not established by ultimate analysis. They're established by conventional analysis, just merely searching out conventionally what is accepted. That's John Campbell over there. That's David Macklis. That's called conventional analysis. So Geshe-la said earlier, it was said that conventional things are established by conventional knowledge, right? This conventional analysis, not ultimate knowledge, not ultimate analysis. There is no production, ultimately, means all conventional things are not established by this kind of ultimate knowledge. But here, Dondampa refers to ultimate knowledge. So this statement is pointing out an apparent contradiction. Okay? How are we doing? Are you following? This is what Geshe-la referred to. Let me see, did I have that? It's a cute way of saying this. He said, oh no, this is the next one, I think. Okay, I don't have it here. This is a tough one. This point. To say that ultimately there is no arising is to say that they are not established as such by perfect cognition. So this seems to be in contradiction to what was said before. What was said before was that conventional things are established by conventional knowledge, not by perfect cognition, which is referring to a consciousness of reality that is a reasoning consciousness. So there's the contradiction. Earlier, it was said that conventional things are known by conventional consciousness. Here it says, ultimately, that there is no arising is to say that they are not established by such a perfect cognition. For through implication, this defines ultimate existence and ultimate arising in terms of being established as arising and being established as existence by a rational cognition of suchness. So here we're talking about what appears to be conventional things, the arisal and existence, and that these are being established by ultimate cognition. Okay, this is a tough one, so you have to, stay tuned. So Lama Tsongkhapa's reply is, or let me say Lama Tsongkhapa's reply. He says, let me read Anne's thing here. She says, that is true, or as Jimpa says, yes, this is true. But you must understand that with respect to the proviso ultimately, let me just get here what Anne says. That is true. You need to understand that the qualification ultimately, Jimpa says proviso, that which you are calling ultimately. There are two senses of the term ultimate. One is where rational cognition of emptiness in the form of threefold wisdom of hearing, contemplating, and meditation, hearing, reflection, and meditation, are characterized as ultimate. So in this sense, when we're talking about ultimate consciousness, usually what we would say more detailed, we would say the reasoning analysis, the reasoning consciousness that analyzes and finds emptiness, that is an ultimate consciousness. It's ultimate consciousness because it is finding the ultimate object, ultimate truth, emptiness. Okay? That kind of reasoning consciousness. Here it is extended to one sense of ultimate is where rational cognition, that means this reasoning consciousness, I want to say, where is it? Chimpa says, in the form of the threefold wisdom of hearing, reflection, and meditation are characterized as ultimate, or as Anne says, the reasoning consciousness of hearing, thinking, and meditating. So you can have reasoning consciousness. Usually we would think of reasoning consciousness as being contemplation, right? Or hearing, thinking, or thinking, you're contemplating, does emptiness exist, and so forth. That kind of analysis that you're using, that would be extended into Lakton, into Vipassana, when you're analyzing whether it exists or not. That kind of reasoning consciousness is called ultimate because it ends up verifying the ultimate truth, ultimate object. So it's called, that kind of reasoning consciousness is called ultimate. As Anne says, this section that we just read Jimpa's translation, the reasoning consciousness of hearing, thinking, and meditating are taken as the ultimate, and then she has in brackets, and thus what is established by them is ultimately existent. And what is not established by them, as the objector just mentioned above, is not ultimately established. Jimba says, in the form of the threefold wisdom of hearing, reflection, meditation are characterized as ultimate phenomena. Phenomena are not established by such cognitions in the manner defined above. The other sense of ultimate, so this is one sense of ultimate. When we talk about ultimate cognitions, when you're thinking about emptiness properly, I say when you're hearing about emptiness, there's a certain wisdom that arises from that, right? When you're understanding that correctly, that could be called an ultimate consciousness. When you're contemplating it, thinking about it, what's the other word here? Contemplating it, that wisdom of contemplation or thinking, that can, if correctly done when analyzing emptiness, that can be called an ultimate consciousness because it leads you to the ultimate truth. And the meditation on that, when you're in meditative contemplation, at that point, you might think there's no reasoning going on. But remember what we talked about before about Lakton, about Vipassana. Vipassana alternates between being reasoning, you're using penetrative insight, but reasoning to, let's say in the mundane sense, analyzing the defects of the lower realm that you are in and the benefits of the upper realm. That's analysis. Then when you come to the conclusion of that, you hold your mind single-pointedly. You have that understanding. You're no longer reasoning. It's just the Vipassana takes the aspect of being a wisdom. Or say when you're analyzing about emptiness, in the meditative, before you're in meditation, you're using contemplation. Once you come to the conclusion of that, and that Vipassana no longer is reasoning, you would say that you are single-pointedly concentrating on that. That's called the wisdom arisen from meditation. At that point, that is still, you could still call that a reasoning consciousness that vipassana, even though it's not in the active mode of analyzing, it's in the mode of just realizing what was certified by that analysis. Does that make sense? Mikhail's nodding. Okay. What do you think, Jennifer? Is it making any sense? Okay. John, what are you chewing? You should share with the class. Teasing. Do you remember in grade school if you were caught chewing something or eating something, the teachers, you had to share it with the class? Okay. So this is one sense of ultimate. Then where are we here? Then in Anne's text, the second meaning of ultimate, being existent in an objective mode of subsistence without being posited by the force of an awareness, is posited as being ultimately existent. And not existing this way is called not being ultimately established. Or as Jimpa says, so there are two senses of the term ultimate. One is this. The other sense is ultimate, is where existence through a thing's own objective mode of being, and not by the virtue of the power of cognitions, is defined as ultimate existence. So when we use the word ultimate, we talk about ultimate existence would mean something which doesn't exist, let's say like a tree, or something that you're very attached to, that you think is sort of really truly existent. The other sense of ultimate is where the existence through a thing's own objective mode of being, and not by virtue of power of cognitions, is defined as ultimate existence. William has a question. It's a good sign that he's listening.
Yes, I usually don't listen. If I believe that I have an Atman, or a permanent soul, and what would that mean by this second definition?
So the word Atman is what we in Tibetan say is dak, self, right? So there is a dak, there is a self conventionally, but usually what we mean when we talk about self is some kind of inherently existent, truly existent self. So that's in the Hindu sense when we talk about Atman. Atman, the Atman, is something.
Now that's what I believe. I believe in that.
You do.
So how does that fit into number two?
So that is the second meaning of ultimate. That's something that we think actually exists by its own mode of existence. How does Shimpa put it here? Its own objective mode of being. Or as Anne says, existent in an objective mode of subsistence. The reason she's using those terms is that the Tibetan words are different than when we're just saying existence and so forth. Jimpa's usually just translating in a more colloquial sense here. Its own objective mode of being. So that would be the sense that we have of your own self, when we haven't been alerted through understanding Buddhist tenets, the Buddhist teachings about emptiness, and that self is appearing to our mind, and we're believing in that as actually existing objectively there, that's really there. Okay. So,
but it's not being posited by the force of an awareness. Therefore, it's posited as being ultimately existent. It's a bit of a logical puzzle in this way of looking. It seems to me that I believe in an Atman. I haven't established it in any other way. I just know I have a soul. I have one, and
right,
it's
right.
a reality.
Let's use soul. Yeah, that's a good thing. Yeah.
Well, I like Atman because Buddha says, "An atta, there is no soul."
Yeah,
So,
anatma. Yeah, there is no soul. Yeah, as we say.
well, anyway, okay, you soul, but so when I believe in it, like a self or a soul, I believe that it has some ultimate existence, and
Exactly.
not existing in this way is called not being ultimately established.
No, this is
So
that. It says here, the other sense of ultimate is where existence through a thing's own objective mode of being. So that's what you're thinking of, existence by
inherent existence
no,
by own.
that's not talking about inherent. They accept inherent existence. They're saying this is what they call true existence. This is their differentiation between true existence and inherent existence. Here, inherent existence or ultimate existence is where existence through a thing's own objective mode of being, not by virtue of the power of appearing to a non-defective cognition, just existing by itself without necessarily appearing to a non-defective cognition whereupon one can posit it as existing. This is just taking what is hypothesized by your mind as objectively existing and accepting it. That's what they're calling true existence. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Let's continue a little bit further. Of these two, yeah, pleasure. Of these two meanings of ultimate. So when one meaning is in the sense of rational consciousness, reasoning consciousnesses are called ultimate consciousnesses because they end up verifying ultimate truth, right? They're called ultimate consciousnesses. You can work it the other way. It's called ultimate truth because it is ascertained by ultimate consciousness, okay? But then there's this other sense of ultimate, things just exist by themselves in their own objective mode of being. Or as Anne says, in an objective mode of subsistence. Okay. So of these two meanings of ultimate, the first ultimate and something established from its perspective do exist, while it is impossible for the second ultimate and something established from its perspective to exist. Okay, this is the point where Geshe-la said, this is a tough one. Okay, let's go over this again. Of these two, the first ultimate and something established from its perspective do exist, while it is impossible for the second ultimate and something established from its perspective to exist. Anne says, the first of these two ultimates, that is a reasoning consciousness of hearing, thinking, or meditating, as well as something that is established in its perspective, namely emptiness, they exist. So those reasoning consciousnesses, those ultimate consciousnesses, and that which is established by them, ultimate truth or emptiness, they exist. However, both the latter ultimate, something that soul that William is talking about, that let's say when we imagine something exists from its own that exists by its own nature. Okay. However, both the latter ultimate, that is existence in an objective mode of subsistence without being posited by the force of an awareness, and something that exists that way, do not occur. They are impossible, or misiba in Tibetan. Is Sheila contemplating, or has she fallen? Oh, okay. I remember at Manjushri Institute, sometime in morning puja, I would be leading the chanting for a while, and then when we were meditating, I would sort of go like this, and people thought I was falling asleep. So you were probably this. I wasn't falling asleep, and Sheila wasn't falling asleep. Okay.
Okay.
Snehi, what do you think?
Rambucha, I just wanted to clarify, when I'm looking at Jinpa's text, where you were just reading of these two, the first ultimate and something established from its perspective do exist. Is that the do exist? Does that mean do conventionally exist?
So let's compare that with Anne's thing. The reason, the first of these two ultimates, and she explains what that means in brackets. That is a reasoning consciousness of hearing, thinking, or meditating, as well as something that is established in its perspective, namely emptiness, exist. So if something exists, so anything that exists has to conventionally exist. So even emptiness exists conventionally, even though emptiness is an ultimate truth, emptiness itself exists conventionally. So I think this is talking about conventional existence. Is that answering the question, say?
Yeah. So the second,
yeah.
So then the second one would then it would follow when it says, well, therefore, while existing ultimately in the second sense, right?
Yeah. Therefore, while existing ultimately in the second sense
while it is impossible for the second ultimate and something established from its perspective to also conventionally exist. Right?
I'm lost. Say again.
So the same sentence where it says in Jinpa's text, so while it is impossible for the second ultimate and something established from its perspective to exist. So,
right.
Okay, because you were just explaining everything it has to be in the realm of conventional existence. Okay.
Right. So of these two, the first ultimate and something established from its own perspective to exist. So that means the rational consciousness of hearing, thinking, and meditating that establish emptiness, they do exist, as well as that which is established by them, which is emptiness, right? Also emptiness exists. Therefore, while existing ultimately in the second sense does imply existing ultimately in the first sense, grasping in terms of the first sense of ultimate existence does not constitute innate grasping at true existence. This is where Geshe-la said, this is a little bit hard, or this is a little bit hard one. It is Tibetan English. This is a little bit hard one. Okay, what is it saying here? Jinpa says, therefore, while existing ultimately in the second sense, that means something objectively existent, like the soul, right? Or anything that we hypothesize as being truly existent. In fact, we believe everything from Svatantrika point of view. We hold everything, all ordinary things, as being inherent, as being truly existent. not just the soul, but that's an example that you can understand better. So therefore, while existing ultimately in the second sense, from its own side, does imply existing ultimately in the first sense, grasping in terms of the first sense of ultimate existence does not constitute innate grasping at true existence. For innate grasping at true existence requires grasping at things in the second sense of ultimate existence. Okay, so one could be excused for taking a nap at this point, or becoming a piece of wood. Okay, let's unpack this. So Anne's translation says, therefore, although whatever exists ultimately in the latter sense, right? Truly existent from its own side, ultimately existent. So when we say truly existent, that means ultimately existent for them in this latter sense, would hypothetically exist ultimately in the former sense. The former sense would mean that to a reasoning, if it existed ultimately, let's say again here, therefore, although whatever exists ultimately in the latter sense, something that seems to be existing from its own side, would hypothetically exist ultimately in the former sense to a reasoning consciousness. So that is to say, if something were truly existent, it could be established by reasoning consciousness. It would withstand that analysis. In fact, nothing can withstand that analysis. Ultimate analysis disintegrates, destroys all conceptions of true existence, so that it destroys the conception of the ultimate existence. So therefore, although whatever exists ultimately in the latter sense, this objective existence from its own side, existing in a objective mode of existence, would hypothetically exist. She adds hypothetically there, very helpful, because it doesn't exist, but it in theory, if it did exist, if true existence did exist, the reasoning consciousness delving into true existence would be able to verify it. It would withstand that analysis. When you analyzed it, you would say, oh yeah, that's there. That's truly existent. But it's not the case. So that parenthetical or bracketed word hypothetically is very important there. Therefore, whatever exists ultimately in the latter sense would hypothetically exist ultimately in the former sense, to the reasoning consciousness. The conception of the former type of existence, as she puts in brackets, that is of an object established for a reasoning consciousness, is not an innate conception of true existence. Since indeed emptiness exists this way, and even it is not truly established. Even emptiness itself is not truly established, is not truly existent, right? Generally, that's the correct Svatantrika view, although there are some outliers, some people who misinterpret things that it does inherently exist. But we'll get to that in a minute. Let's say that again. Therefore, whatever exists ultimately in the latter sense would hypothetically exist ultimately in the former sense. We went over that. The conception of the former type of existence using reasoning analysis, that is, an object established for a reasoning consciousness. What is that object established for a reasoning consciousness? Anyone know? Mikhail, what do you think?
Emptiness, yeah.
Yeah, right, exactly. The conception of the former type of existence, that is, an object established for a reasoning consciousness, and that is only emptiness, is not an innate conception of true existence. Since indeed emptiness exists this way, and even it is not truly established, and since conceiving any phenomenon, any other phenomenon, to be established for such a reasoning consciousness would be an artificial conception of true existence. That's all in brackets. To have such an innate conception of true existence, one must conceive of the latter type of existence, that is, of an objective mode of subsistence not posited through the force of the mind. How are you doing, Nadine? Are you thinking about this? It's making sense?
Yes. I'm always wondering if Svatantrika and Prasangika agree in that phenomena do not exist inherently on the ultimate level. Ultimately. Do they agree on this?
For different reasons, yeah.
For different reasons.
Yeah. Svatantrika would say, although phenomena exist inherently on the conventional level, ultimately they are not inherently existent. Prasangika would say that phenomena are not inherently existent, both conventionally and ultimately, but for different reasons. Because Prasangika would not accept that they inherently exist on the conventional level, right?
And Svatantrika, could one say that they would say because things do not exist truly on the conventional level, that's why they don't exist inherently on the ultimate level.
Who says that?
And this is my understanding.
Oh, yeah, Nadine says that. Say again. Say again.
Because Svatantrika would say, because things do not exist truly, conventionally, that's why they don't exist inherently, ultimately.
They don't exist truly conventionally. I don't know. Let's see if they say.
I wonder why. How do they explain why things don't exist inherently, ultimately? Because they say they exist inherently on the conventional level. So what's the difference then?
Well, because on the ultimate level, that means in meditative equipoise on emptiness, no phenomena exists at all. So there's no appearance of inherent existence at that point, right? Which on the conventional level does appear. There's an appearance of inherent existence. Of course, there's an appearance of true existence for the Prasangika, but the Svatantrika say phenomena do not appear to the senses as truly existent, right? That's something that is a mental imposition, a mental something that's added by the mental consciousness. They don't appear to be truly existent. For Prasangika, phenomena do appear to the senses as truly existent. So there's a difference there. For the Svatantrika, phenomena appear to be inherently existent conventionally, and they say they are inherently existent, so that the sense consciousnesses that perceive that, okay, a little bit different if you talk about Yogacara Svatantrika, because it's you're not talking about the sense consciousnesses, but anyway, generally the sense, what appears to the sense consciousnesses is correct. I'm not talking word true or false, but is what appears to them is correct, is inherent existence. Phenomena do exist there from their own side. we'll fine tune this as we go along. This is a difficult subject. John, what are you thinking? Where did John go? Disappeared. Oh, there he is.
Yeah, sorry, I wasn't. Thanks. Yeah, along similar lines to, I think, to Nadine's question, I two questions that I wanted to follow up with. First is hopefully simple. Is it true that for Prasangika, Nembar Yuba and Rangshingi Druba are the true existence and inherent existence are one and the same? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Prasangika, if something, if you talk about hypothetically something being inherently existent, for Prasangika, that would be truly existent. So they would say that for the Svatantrikas to say that things are inherently existent conventionally, Prasangika would press them to say, well, that means that they are truly existent conventionally.
It entails that.
Yeah, that would entail that, because for Prasangika, those two terms would, as you said, be hypothetical synonyms. Again, we say hypothetical synonyms because neither of them exist, inherent existence and true existence. And for two things to be synonyms, they have to exist. So you have to call them hypothetical synonyms.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. And then my quick follow-up is, and forgive me if this is off, I don't think it's off topic, but it's off the book, is when everybody in their various ways are translating inherent existence or intrinsic reality, they're translating svabhava, correct? Or rangshin,
right?
Rangshingi Druba, or svabhava siddha.
Right.
And I understood, maybe incorrectly, but I thought I understood that if Nagarjuna could be said to have had one project, it was to establish that nothing exists with svabhava. So is it that the Svatantrika Madhyamikas are trying to say that actually he meant only on an ultimate level that they don't have svabhava, but that conventionally
okay,
they do have svabhava?
So we'll reinterpret, say again, using English without Sanskrit for those who don't follow. Yeah. So say again.
So that for Nagarjuna's project, at least in the central karikas on wisdom or in the Vigraha Vyavardhani, that the entire project was to establish that you could not support the idea of intrinsic existence or intrinsic reality or inherent reality, that was not supportable. Right. And so therefore, if that's the case, as interpreters of Nagarjuna, is it that the Svatantrika Madhyamikas are saying that he only meant for that to apply on the ultimate,
yes,
for ultimate reality?
So. I think so. What do you think, Paul? Is that your understanding?
Yeah, that's my understanding as well.
I think that's true. Okay, so let's continue here. So Anne translates this section. I think we already went through, or maybe we haven't. Therefore, although whatever exists ultimately in the latter sense would hypothetically exist ultimately in the former sense, we talked about that, the conception of the former type of existence, that is, of an object established for reasoning consciousness, is not an innate conception of true existence. The conception of the former type of existence, that is, an existence which has been verified by reasoning consciousness, analyzing the ultimate. The conception of that is not an innate conception of true existence, because that conception is conceiving emptiness, right? You can have a direct realization of emptiness. You can have a conception of emptiness, what do we say? A conceptual understanding of emptiness. that correct conceptual understanding of emptiness that's derived through reasoning consciousness, that conception, that grasp, the same word, zimba, that conception or grasping is not an innate conception of true existence, and puts in parentheses, since indeed emptiness exists this way, and even it is not truly established, and since conceiving any other phenomena to be established for such a reasoning consciousness would be an artificial conception of true existence. To have such an innate conception of true existence, one must conceive of the latter type of existence, that is, of an objective mode of subsistence not posited through the force of the mind. Okay, so Geshe Zopa said here about this. He said, this is a little bit hard one, this little statement right there. If something is real in the latter sense, in the sense of being ultimately existing, truly existing from its own mode of subsistence and so forth, if something were to exist like that, then it must be pervaded. So both of the authors here are using the word must or should. Actually, the Tibetan word is kyap, which means there's a pervasion, there's a necessity. Like, for instance, we talked about the word khapa before. We talked about the word pervasion, like the incense pervades the room, right? Or let's say bad example, the sarin gas pervaded the train car by the terrorists. Pervade means goes everywhere. So it's a necessity that it's there. So Geshe-la said, if something is real in the latter sense of having an objective mode of existence, if there is something that exists like that, then it must exist in the perspective of ultimate knowledge. There's a pervasion that it would exist to this reasoning consciousness analyzing the ultimate. If it did exist that way, it must, what did he say? Exist in the perspective of that ultimate consciousness. That part makes sense? Okay. Everything that exists ultimately and everything that truly exists hypothetically, anything, I would say, rather than saying everything, anything that would hypothetically exist ultimately, or anything that would hypothetically truly exist, should or must, or there's a pervasion that it is the object of that knowledge. That means there's a necessity. If it were to be truly existent, it would have to be the object of that ultimate knowledge, that reasoning consciousness. That's the meaning of this convoluted statement. Very, very brief in Lama Tsongkhapa. That's why it's so difficult. And in talking to Jeremy a little while ago, he commented that also when they debated on this in the dialectic school, the dialectic institute, and also, at the colleges, this is many, many debates about this section right here. So Geshe-la said further, Ngama Yozin, of an object established for a reasoning consciousness. So where did we have this in our phrase here? Ngame Yozin. So the first thing, so Ngame Yozin, that means grasping to existence in the former sense, right? That means, or holding existence in the former sense, that the former sense means the reasoning consciousness. Holding something to exist in that sense, well, that does exist. That's emptiness, for instance, right? Lenkegi den denzin min. It is not innate grasping to true existence. So we understand that. An object established for a reasoning consciousness, something which holds yopar zimpa, means exists in the surface of all kinds of perspective, in the view of right knowledge, ultimate knowledge. That grasping that way is not denzin, is not grasping to true existence. And it's not innate grasping to true existence, because it's true. It's correct. It's not an affliction. An innate mind will not hold that kind of subject and object. Usually we don't have. That is only due to, as Geshe said, standa or siddhanta, meaning tenets of those people or schools like the Jonangpas and so forth. The Jonangpas, we've run across that maybe a couple of times before. The Jonangpa school, there's a great Tibetan master. What's his whole name? John or Paul would know.
Dolpopa Sherab Gyaltsen, I think, or
yeah, Dolpopa, right? Dolpopa was the founder of the Jonangpa school, I guess, or sort of solidifier of something that was already existing there. So those traditions are considered erroneous by Lama Tsongkhapa. So here Geshe was saying that is only due to the tenets or the siddhanta of those people or schools like the Jonangpas and so forth. Some others who claim that shunyata is ultimately existent, or because that is seen by ultimate knowledge, etc. But that is only a certain kind of view of those following tenets. It is not the innate mind. It would be an artificial conception. Okay. So there's some more detail coming here. Let's see. So far, we okay? You have to sort of go back and read this again and see on the basis of our discussing it now, whether this is making sense. Okay. So here, failing to draw this distinction, or as Anne says, not differentiating these two meanings of the ultimate, failing to draw this distinction between ultimate meaning a reasoning consciousness, which does exist and its object existing, and ultimate meaning an ultimate object, meaning like truly existent in this Svatantrika sense of objective mode of existence, not seeing a difference between the two, just sort of missing that distinction, failing to draw this distinction, many appeared who considered, quote, that which is capable of withstanding reasoned analysis. Okay, what would that mean? Capable of withstanding reasoned analysis. That means reasoning consciousness, analyzing the ultimate. If something is able to withstand that reasoning, it would be ultimately existent. But there's nothing that can withstand that analysis. Even emptiness, if you analyze it, it cannot withstand that analysis. It also is empty. So they're thinking that the people that don't make this distinction, many appeared who considered that which is capable of withstanding reasoned analysis, or an entity capable of withstanding such analysis, to be the measure of the object of negation. So they're saying the object of negation, the measure of that, or sort of like the definition of the object of negation, the degree that you can recognize it, is that which is so if something were capable of withstanding reasoned analysis, that would be the object of negation. numerous errors have apparently been made because of this. For instance, some assert that ultimate truth is not a knowable phenomenon. Ultimate truth is not a knowable phenomenon. In other words, it doesn't exist. Others view it as truly existent. Here, Anne says, not differentiating these two meanings of ultimate, many have held that the measure of the object of negation is something able to bear reasoned analysis, or something able to bear analysis. Independence upon this, many appear to have made the mistake of asserting that ultimate truths are not established bases. Or as how did Chimpa say here? Not a knowable phenomena. Here it's actually established bases. Remember when we studied tenets and at various times, Shidrup is one of the synonyms of existence or phenomena and so forth, established base. Independence upon this, many appear to have made the mistake of asserting that ultimate truths are not established bases. That is, they do not exist. Ultimate truths do not exist. Or, on the other hand, that they are truly established. Okay, so at this point, Jimpa has this note 324, right? So, because my eyes are getting hinky here, I printed it out. If you're interested in any of these printouts, let me know and I can send them to you. So note 324 says, if you were to go to that in the text, it says, Jimpa's note says, although Tsongkhapa does not identify who he sees to be the proponents of these errors. So what are these errors? It says numerous errors have apparently been made because of this. For instance, some assert that ultimate truths are not established bases, are not knowable phenomena. That's one mistake, one error. The other views that ultimate truths are truly existent. That's not right. Ultimate truths are emptinesses, right? Emptinesses are not truly existent. Emptinesses themselves are empty. The famous phrase from the Prajnaparamita, the emptiness of emptiness. And when we talk about the various divisions of emptiness, later we'll talk about the emptiness of emptiness. If you analyze emptiness, it itself does not exist truly. So those are the two wrong views. So Jimpa says, although Tsongkhapa does not identify those who he sees to be the proponents of these errors, his student Khedrubje attributes the first error to the great translator Ngok Loden Sherab. We've talked about Ngok before. What had he translated? Either John or Paul, remember? He was the great translator, Ngok Loden Sherab.
Translated, was it either Dignaga or Dharmakirti? I'm forgetting which.
So was he the one that also had translated some of Majjhimakavatara, or that was a different Ngok?
I think that might have been his nephew. I don't remember, though. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. Okay,
so here he says, Khedrubje attributes the first error to the great translator Ngok Loden Sherab. So this is a Tibetan translator who claimed that ultimate truths are not knowable phenomena. I mean, there were many other people all said this, but Khedrubje pointed this out in his Dose of Emptiness. I don't have that book here right in front of me to show you, but you remember Dose of Emptiness by Khedrubje, translated by Jose Cabezon. And he attributes the second error to the logician Chapachuki Senge, this famous Sakya Lama. And he says, see Cabezon, Dose of Emptiness, page 143, which I will read you from that section here in a moment. Khedrup offers a crucial middle step, namely that such proponents fail to differentiate between something that can withstand reasoned analysis, and something that is established by reasoning. This is Chimpa's note 324 in the text. You can read it yourself at the end of the text, or if you have the digital version, you just put your finger on that, right? So he says, Khedrup offers a crucial middle step, namely that such proponents fail to differentiate between something that can withstand reasoned analysis. That's what we were talking about before. If you can, when you're analyzing whether it truly exists, it's a reasoned analysis, and it bears that analysis, it doesn't get destroyed by that analysis, that would be truly existent. You know, like your dog or your enemy that you hold, or your cat who's walking right in front of you and over your keyboard. I hope it didn't disturb your okay. So that's one. They fail to differentiate between something that can withstand reasoned analysis and something that is established by reasoning. So something that is established by reasoning means emptiness. Emptiness is established by that reasoning consciousness. Since even the ultimate truth cannot withstand analysis, right? That means ultimate truth, emptiness. If you use reasoning consciousness, what's the word here? You analyze with ultimate analysis, it too cannot bear that. It too is empty of inherent existence, even emptiness itself. So since even ultimate truth, emptiness, cannot withstand analysis, Ngok felt compelled to admit, according to Khedrup, that ultimate truth is unestablished. Shimadrup. It doesn't exist. Okay, making sense? You have that much in your book. So let me read from what Jimpa was referring to from Dose of Emptiness, Jose Cabezon's translation of Khedrup-Che's Dose of Emptiness. I think it's called Tong Tung, in short. What's the longer name? Did John or Paul know?
It's just Tong Tung Chemo, but I think
Tong Tung Chemo, yeah.
Yeah.
The Great Dose of Emptiness, or Tong is referring to emptiness, generally. Tun is a word that sometimes means, in medicine, means like if you take your dose of medicine. It can also mean session. So you could say the great session, or the great sort of period of discussing emptiness. It's a great text by Khedrup that Jose courageously took on. I think that was his PhD thesis, wasn't it? And came out as that book. So that Khedrup-Che's very, very thick book, very, very difficult, considered one of the very difficult texts. So this note, the page 143 in Cabezon about this, he says, Jose says, without making these kinds of distinctions, he's translated Khedrup-Che, right? Khedrup-Che is saying, without making these kinds of distinctions between the two meanings of ultimate, some have fallen into such errors as believing that the measure of that which is to be refuted, the Gakche Se, it is, we've been talking about that. What's the defining characteristic of the Gakcha? Some have fallen into such errors as believing that the measure of that which is to be refuted is determined by whether something can withstand analysis by reasoning. Rikpe Chezo. That's what we've been talking about. Rikpa means reasoning. Rikpe means by reasoning. Chezo, zo means withstand or withstand. And shepa means analysis. Rikpe Chezo means withstand analysis by reasoning. They do not distinguish between something withstanding the analysis by reasoning that examines reality and something being established by reasoning. That's just what Jimpa had said. Hence, the sages of old, like the translator Ngok, believe that the ultimate truth is not a knowable phenomena, sheja, whereas others like Chapa, meaning the Chapa Choge Senge, assert that the absence of true existence truly exists. And Khedrubche says, yes, errors as huge as these have arisen. So we're all saying, yeah, I could imagine that. And then you say, errors as huge as these haven't arisen. So then you're immediately chastised, thinking that almost sounded like it was possible. So within that, there are two notes. He mentions that Langdon Sherab is one of the Tibetan's greatest Tibetan translators. And then this thing about the yes, errors as huge as this have arisen, as a note to that, note 486, he says, this is Jose's note to Khedrubche's text. He says, the basic error, says Khedrubche, is confusing the two connotations of the word ultimate in the expressions ultimately existing as explained. Remember, we were just talking about these two meanings of ultimate, meaning ultimate consciousness and that which is established by it, and that which is existing in an objective mode is truly existent. The basic error, says Khedrubche, is confusing the two connotations of the word ultimate in the expression ultimately existing as explained. Ngok, he claims, Khedrubche claims, confuses the analytical reasoning that examines reality with reasoning in general. Khedrubche visualizes him reasoning as follows. In other words, this is what Jose is saying. It's though Khedrubche is thinking, this is what Ngok Loden Sherab must be thinking. Khedrubche visualizes Ngok reasoning as follows. Even reality cannot withstand ultimate analysis. Hence, it cannot withstand reasoning in general. Hence, it cannot be established by valid cognition. And hence, reality, that is ultimate truth, does not exist. So what's the difference here? Two kinds of reasoning. Ultimate reasoning, ultimate analysis, it can't withstand that. That's accepted. But he says, therefore, it also cannot withstand conventional analysis, conventional reasoning. Like we say, where is John? He's in Westchester. He's in his house. He's in that room. Now he's sitting in, that's called conventional analysis. Therefore, you can't even establish that it exists at all. Hence, it cannot be established by a valid cognition, and hence reality, that is ultimate truth, does not exist. That's what Khedrubche is attributing to Ngok Loden Sherab. Chapa Chogesenge, Chapa, on the other hand, the Sakya Lama, who said that it's truly existent. Chapa, on the other hand, Khedrubche perceives to reason as follows. So again, Khedrubche is hypothesizing how Chapa comes to this conclusion that ultimate truth truly exists. He says, reality, he's imagining Chapa thinking this way, reality, the absence of true existence, exists within the purview, within the perspective of the gnosis that understands reality. The absence of true existence exists within the purview, within the perspective of the gnosis that understands reality. That much is true, right? Absence of true existence, emptiness, exists in the perspective of the consciousness that understands reality. Hence, it truly exists, according to Chapa. That's according to Khedrubche's hypothesizing what Chapa is thinking. Hence, it truly exists. and hence the absence of true existence truly exists. Only further scrutiny of the views of these two authors, to the extent that they are available, will bear out Khedrubje's claims, however. I think there are probably some Tibetan scholars who've done that already. So anyway, there are other people who understand that. How are we doing? Diana, is it making any sense? We pulled you out of you missed a few classes. I don't know if you were able to catch up.
I'm still behind, but I'm barely following.
Okay. If you catch up and then read again, maybe it becomes more clear. Ida, how are you doing? Making sense?
Trying. So the absence of true existence doesn't exist? Is that what you said? What?
So the absence of true existence, what would that be? What is the absence of true existence?
Well, I'm trying to figure that out, because as I follow true existence according to the Svastantrika, it's a mental.
Hold on. So true existence is something that Svatantrika and Prasangika both say does not exist.
Correct.
That's why they're Madhyamikas. Madhyamikas generally say that phenomena do not truly exist, right? Even emptiness do not truly exist. So true existence, when you say the absence of true existence, that's another way of saying the emptiness of true existence, or emptiness, right? So so say again your question.
Well, the senses, I'm not clear on this, so I'm gonna skip.
Okay, but I thought you had some point there when you were talking about the absence of true existence. I think you said does not exist. Okay, that's that. So the absence of true existence would mean emptiness, right? So of these scholars, I think Chabachugich, I think Ngok, let's say again what Ngok's position is. Khedrubje visualizes Ngok as reasoning as follows: even reality cannot withstand ultimate analysis, meaning even emptiness cannot withstand ultimate analysis. Hence, it cannot withstand reasoning in general. So he's extending it, saying, if it can't withstand ultimate analysis, it can't withstand conventional analysis, which is what enables you to posit something as existing conventionally, as valid, Hence, it cannot be established by a valid cognition, and hence reality, that is ultimate truth, does not exist. That's the argument that's sort of like here, forced by Khedrubje upon Ngok, Lodin Sherab. I don't think they were contemporaries. I think Ngok was well before. Ngok was in the 1000s or something like that. So yeah, so you could say in the terminology you were using, how did you say the absence? How did you say the absence of, what did you say? The absence of reality, the absence of
true existence doesn't exist.
True existence. Yeah, for Ngok and others, he's not the only one, but he was one proponent, said that it did not exist. That it was not an object of knowledge. It could not be understood. It did not appear to a correct consciousness. So, according to the general Prasangika and general Svatantrika, emptiness does exist, and emptiness is perceivable. Snehi, what are you thinking?
Venerable George, when you were just reading notes, perspective, I followed that emptiness cannot withstand ultimate analysis, but then there was a second part to it, that emptiness cannot withstand conventional analysis. I forget how it went.
This is how to say, K-Drup J. This is Jose is saying that K-Drup J is apparently hypothesizing, guessing what Ngok Loren must be thinking when he said that emptiness is not a knowable object. He's saying, since it can't withstand ultimate analysis, well, then it can't even withstand, it can't, therefore, just making a jump out of the blue, it can't withstand conventional analysis. Generally, phenomena that cannot withstand, any phenomena cannot withstand ultimate analysis, but many phenomena can withstand conventional analysis. That is, you can find them. You can find Don in his office. You can find Anna next to her blackboard conventionally with conventional analysis, but none of them can withstand ultimate analysis. But K-Drup J is hypothesizing maybe that's why Ngok comes to the conclusion that it's not an object of knowledge because it can't be established by conventional analysis. Thinking that maybe he's thinking that because it can't withstand ultimate analysis, it can't withstand conventional analysis. But I think there are other reasonings involved there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, how are we doing? Making sense? We're just about finished. How about let's see, where are we? So failing to draw this distinction, many appeared who considered that which is capable of withstanding reasoned analysis, unquote, or, quote, an entity capable of withstanding such analysis, unquote, to be the measure of the object of negation. Numerous errors have apparently been made because of this. For instance, some assert that ultimate truth is not a knowable phenomena, like Ngok Loden Sherab, and others view it as truly existent, like Chapachoke Senge. So just let me read the next paragraph. This is where we'll start next time. In contrast, Jimpus translates, if one appreciates well the above distinction between the two senses of ultimate, one will come to appreciate such crucial points as there being no contradiction between the statements that, quote, things do not exist through their own essential mode of being or ultimately, unquote, and yet, quote, the ultimate nature of things does not exist. The ultimate nature of things does exist, unquote, and to speak of this as constituting the essential mode of being and the ultimate. Okay, so that's where we're going to, that's where we'll start next time. Just make a note here. Can anyone tell me in Jimpa's book what page that is?
176.
Thank you. And in Anne's text, let's see.
Page 170, I think, George, Venerable George.
Yeah, 170, right? So if you have Anne's text, 170, this is where we'll start next time. Okay, what do you think? Your head, what happened? Dottie, Doris is, I was calling it Dottie. Doris has disappeared. She's got a headache. She probably has, her vision is blurred because of her headache. Is it better now? Or has this caused your headache to get worse? It's exploded. Okay. Jennifer, any questions? Any thoughts?
Very difficult.
Okay, Doris, that was Doris. Jennifer, what do you think?
No, I think it's okay. It's one of those things where no questions means I'm probably not getting it as much as I think I am, but that's okay.
Right. That's always a good thing. The more you understand something, generally the more doubts and questions you have. So if you don't have any doubts and questions, you might go back and say, let me check this again to see if I understand. Sheila, how are you doing? Making sense? Okay, yeah. John? Following? John Campbell?
So far, I'm okay. I'm okay.
Paul, you okay? Okay. And John, Snehi. Ron, any question you want to ask? Okay. Stephen?
Yeah, thank you, Venerable George. I'm going to listen to this again and go through phrase by phrase, but I'm feeling really optimistic that I'll be able to get it.
Good, yeah. I think that's
So
the way to think about it. Yeah, yeah. There are a lot of different sources. All of the sources say, and as Geshe-la said, how did he put it? I can't remember, something like, this is a tough one. This is a hard one. So, go back over it, but I think you'll be able to get it. Thanks for your strong energy. We'll have discussion group on Monday. So if you have a chance to review it a little tonight and tomorrow and Monday morning, those that come to discussion group, we can go over some nitty gritty of that. Keep in mind, Geshe Dadul Namgyal, dear teacher, a friend of mine, and the teacher Shravasti is still missing, at least before the class he was still missing, hopefully. And we'll try to dedicate any of merits that we've created, in addition to the general objects of dedication, just to Geshe-la's well, somehow surviving this, if not in whatever way he's ends up, may he quickly continue his spiritual path, finding a perfect Mahayana guru, following the path and quickly attaining enlightenment, but using this untoward experience, very sad experience, as a reminder to ourselves that the time of death is indefinite, that even someone with plans and great store of merit, adored and cared for and considered with such kindness by so many people, can sometimes disappear just like that. So if we could put up the dedication prayers, although most of you know them, maybe the long life prayers we don't have memorized. So after this, I think below that, whoever put that up, was that Snehi? After these, we're going to do the dedication. There we go. Gewadi Dyurduda Lama Sange Rukyurne Roa Chikyam Balupam De Sala Goparsho Changchu Semchog Rinpoche Make Panam Ke Gyurche Ke Banyampa Me Bayang Gone Gontu Belbar Sho. Peerless teacher and assembly of children of the conquerors, you Shravakas, Pratika Buddhas, along with victorious Losang Drakpa, who is the spiritual father to his two spiritual sons, Kedrubje and Gyaltsabje, together with your lineage, all the objects of refuge of the infinite realms, please now, at this time, bestow the virtue and goodness to accomplish this prayer. In holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings, you explain the practice through explanation and practice. You wore the armor of patience, which is never discouraged. Incomparable, venerable Guru, to you I make this request. Soul gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, while you were striving exclusively for the welfare of the conqueror's teachings and for the welfare of mother sentient beings, you suddenly departed to peace. You passed away. At this, I am devastated. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the oceanic blessings of the three jewels and the great waves of the bodhicitta, of the children of the conquerors, the bodhisattvas, may the smile of a new reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples. And then for all our spiritual friends, especially for Geshe Dadu Namgyal, you who are our eyes for viewing all the infinite scriptures, supreme gateway for the fortunate ones traveling to liberation, engaging with skillful means, moved by love, all illuminating spiritual friends, please be stable, please be well, please be safe, please live a long and stable life. If not, quickly taking rebirth, finding all of the essentials for the path, appear again for the benefit of yourself and all sentient beings. And finally, just make a general dedication, just sort of in general, thinking of the merits that we created today, dedicating them for these causes, these aims, and seal that in an apprehension of the emptiness of the three spheres, the collections of merit and wisdom do not inherently exist, that which we're dedicating. The goals dedicated to our own progress on the path, our achieving enlightenment, making realizations, and so forth, long life of our gurus, quick return of Lama Zopa Rinpoche, the welfare of Geshe Dadu Namgyal, so forth. All of those goals do not exist inherently. They exist conventionally for conventional analysis, but for ultimate analysis, they are destroyed. They are found to lack inherent existence, lack true existence. And the act of dedication itself, trying to link these merits with those goals, that too is just a process that is merely labeled, can't be found anywhere. To our mind, with conventional analysis, seems like it exists, findable. We just did dedication. But in ultimate analysis, it is destroyed and found to be lacking inherent existence. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And could I just make a conventional announcement? So,
Not an ultimate analysis, not an ultimate analysis.
Sunday, November 19th at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, we're going to be hosting a long life for Venerable George's long life Guru Puja. So Venerable Katie Cole will be the Umse. Just heard from Serkong Rinpoche today that he should be in attendance. So I'm going to verify if he might be the Vajra Master, but it'll be amazing. So there's a link in the chat area for you to sign up. It'll be wonderful for us students to continue creating the causes to receive teachings and to have Venerable George with us for a very long time. Thank you.
Especially, well, Katie Cole did one of the other pujas, I think, which I found very, very skillful and very good. So just that alone would be worth attending. But if Serkong Rinpoche is able to attend, that would be like icing on the icing on top of the icing. A very rare opportunity to be present with, when we're doing a Guru Puja like that. Even if he doesn't, he will be in our hearts also. So thank you very much. Look forward to seeing you next week. And some of you maybe on Monday. Take care.
Thank you, Venerable George.
Thanks all for your attendance. Take care.
Take care.
Bye now.